Good afternoon, or whatever time of the day it is wherever you are. We are very glad you are joining us for this for this Wednesday afternoon pick me up where I am, but hopefully it will be a pick up for you wherever you are. I was trying to decide what to speak on today and really wasn't getting anywhere. And I started going through some old lessons that I had done, and I found one that spoke deeply to me. And I will admit, I have done this one before, but it's been 4 years. But it's still relevant. And it's entitled, Resistance is Futile. Now, any of you who are science fiction fans may have heard the Borg on Star Trek or their dialect on Doctor Who say, resistance is futile. And they say it much better than I do. But resistance is futile. And we're living in a time that makes it difficult not to want to resist at times, and not to want to change things differently to a different way of doing things or to a different situation. But as I said, resistance is futile. In The Power of Ideas, the one published in 1965, Dr. Holmes said, "We should come to realize that the presence greater than we are is cooperating with us, which it most certainly is, and therefore we must cooperate with it. And our cooperation is so simple: believe in it, trust in its guidance, and accept its expression through us." He also says in The Power of Ideas, the law of natures are self-existent. They are here. They work, they have no effort in working. Life turns itself into all the forms it takes through an effortless process. So you and I will have to cooperate and not oppose. This is the meaning of non-resistance. The more we resist things, the more they become us. But they may be reduced through the feeling that we do not have to struggle against them, for there is a power greater than we are, and we can rely on this power. I've said many times, with God, all things are possible. But there's a but there. We have to be willing to let go and not resist, to allow God to work through us, to allow whatever we are to manifest to show up. I don't know about you, but when things aren't going the way I think they should, I tend to resist. I tend to want to fix it. I would tend to want to make it better. I tend to want to do something and to do it now. And based on what I just read that Dr. Holmes said, I need to learn to no longer resist. And I found, as I said, I've done this several times, but the first time I put this lesson together, I found a great example of non-resistance. And that's when you get stuck in quicksand. When you get stuck in quicksand, you immediately need to learn to not resist. If you ever get stuck in quicksand, the first thing you need to do is drop everything. If you step into quicksand and you're wearing a backpack or something heavy, immediately take it off and drop whatever you're carrying, because your body is less dense than the quicksand and you won't sink as quickly. Therefore, you won't panic and struggle because you have too much weight weighing you down. If we put this in our lives, when we begin to feel the need to resist, we need to do something different. Maybe we need to go for a walk. Maybe we need to take a minute to meditate, or just take 21 deep breaths and to be fully present. I was honored Sunday to go to the baby shower for my second great grandson, who will be here in October. And I was making baby blankets for my granddaughter. And I was having a terrible problem with the sewing machine, which, by the way, will be going to the repair people as soon as this lesson is over. And I had finally got it working, and I had got it to do the decorative stitch I wanted, and I ran out of thread, ran out of bobbin. When I put a new bobbin in the machine, instead of having hearts on both sides, I had hearts on one side and a cross stitch on the other. Now, the resistance to this was I had a terrible time winding that bobbin. And I actually said out loud, if I actually listened to my inner guidance, I would get up and walk away and do nothing. And I didn't. And now I get to have the resistance of pulling out those stitches to do something different. But, you know, that was a time I should have listened, not resisted, and just gone and done something else. Okay, the second thing is, if it is possible to get out of your shoes, do so. Shoes, especially those flat, inflexible soles such as boots, create suction as you're trying to pull them out of the quicksand. If you know ahead of time that you're highly likely to encounter quicksand, change out of your boots and either go barefooted or wear shoes that you can pull your feet out of. See, if I had listened when my inner guidance told me to get up and walk away, I would have been able to not spend the next 2 or 3 hours pulling out stitches that I'm going to have to pull out now, because I was bound and determined to do it my way. And the next step is move horizontally. If you feel your feet getting stuck, take a quick step, couple of steps backwards before the quicksand can take hold. It usually takes a minute or two for the liquid to mix, which means the best method of getting yourself unstuck is to not get stuck in the first place. Again, if I had walked away from the sewing machine, I wouldn't be having to pull out stitches. So if your feet do get stuck, take big lumbering steps to get yourself out. Taking big steps forward might unstick one foot, but push the other one further down, making it extremely more difficult to get unstuck. Now, this is the height of non-resistance. And this is the one that I want you to remember the most. If you're ever stuck in quicksand and you can't get out, lay back in it. Instead of resisting it, lay back into the quicksand. That allows you to get your feet unstuck. It also creates a larger footprint that should free your feet by removing the pressure they've created and allowing them to float. When you feel them start to come free, roll to your side away from the quicksand and free of its grip. You will get dirty, but it's the quickest and the safest way to free yourself. How many times when we're in resistance, instead of relaxing into it, we power ahead and tense our body and just power our way through it, like winding the bobbin before I really screwed up. And then the last one, which is never my easiest thing to do, which is take your time. If you're stuck in quicksand, frantic movement will only hurt your cause. Whatever you do, do it slowly. Slow movements will prevent you from agitating the quicksand, and vibrations caused by rapid movement can turn otherwise relatively firm ground into more quicksand. And more importantly, quicksand can react unpredictably to your movements. If you're slow, you can easily stop an adverse reaction, and by doing so, avoid getting yourself stuck deeper. You're going to need to be patient. Again, going back to my story with making the baby blankets, which still aren't made, and I had to send Danielle a IOU for baby blankets. If I hadn't pushed my way through it, I wouldn't have 2 or 3 hours of extra work. If I had thought about it a year and a half ago when I made the other baby's blankets, that sewing machine was not working right there. But I did not take the time to be patient and do what I needed to do, to take care of my equipment and to not get focused on my timetable and just allow it to unfold the way it wanted to. The last comment on the quicksand is most deaths in quicksand are due to exhaustion from fighting it or drowning when the tide comes in. Think about your own experience with resistance. How many times have you been so exhausted you just threw up your hands and walked away after mumbling every bad word you could think of, or just felt like the wave of events have washed over you to the point that you just don't care anymore? Or you're just so frustrated you can't do anything else? Part of resisting the need to resist is to approach it from a attitude or belief that this too shall pass, or this will get done. In the Beatitudes in Matthew, Jesus said that the weak shall inherit the earth. And a lot of times when we think of someone being weak, we think of them being inactive and letting people walk all over them, or living with a victim mentality, or being somebody who doesn't fight for what they believe, or just kind of sits there and lets stuff wash over them. And sometimes we judge that as not being an effective person, when in reality they may be the most effective. Charles Fillmore in Revealing Words said that someone who is meek is a person who is highly trained to react to all negative stimuli with love instead of an eye for an eye mentality. Holmes reminds us that we do not teach our children to be Napoleon or Hitler, but to be more like Jesus or Buddha. And when we give up resistance and fighting against whatever is going on, and we can just lay back and relax and allow that divine inner guidance to work for us and through us, our life is much simpler, our blood pressure is much lower, and we live a much calmer, wonderful life. We need to understand and remember that with God, all things are possible, and that God is infinite. As we look out over the ocean and it goes on for miles and miles and miles beyond where we can see, that's like God. God is so much more than we can see and so much more than we can imagine. And yet every fiber of our being is God expressing us absolutely perfectly. When we can lay back and relax and allow that divine guidance, that divine energy, that divine God stuff to work through us and for us, and we're not fighting it with our resistance and our belief of how things should come together, our life works much better. Again, if you find yourself in resistance, think about how you get out of quicksand. Lay back and relax. Take a moment to say a short prayer. Take a moment to take some deep breaths. Get up and walk around or leave the room. Call a friend and talk about something other than what's driving you nuts. But just allow yourself to know that with God, all things are possible, and this too shall pass. That's it for today.